All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the, who's our viewing audience, to the Edina Heritage Preservation Board meeting for October 14th, 2004. 14? Getting off to a good start. All right, call to order. I don't know, should we take some roll call?
Sure, I would like to let you know that Jennifer Christiansen and Tim O'Brien will not be in attendance this evening. Member Mellum. Here. Member Moore.
Here.
Member Sussman.
Here.
Member McClellan.
Present.
Member Weber.
Present.
Member Druckman.
Present.
And Member Ottness.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, the next step of our agenda is the approval of the agenda for tonight. So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Approval of the minutes is next. For last month's meeting, September 9th, do we have any comments or anything regarding the meeting minutes or changes that need to be made? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. The next section is community comment. This is a section where we ask anybody in the audience if they have anything regarding something that's not on the agenda for this evening, if they want to comment on anything. Do we have any community comments? All right. Then we'll move on to our reports. And tonight we have 2 certificates of appropriateness. The first one on the agenda is 4625 Arden Avenue, which is the new front entry canopy and new detached garage. Joyce, would you like to discuss this for us?
Thank you. All this technology here. Wait, I see. No. Little technology here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the subject property is located on the east side of the 4600 block of Arden Avenue. The existing home, a colonial revival with Dutch colonial style, was constructed in 1925. Currently has a 2-car detached garage located on the north side of the property in the rear yard. The certificate of appropriateness request entails construction of a new front entry canopy and replacing the existing 2-car detached garage with a new garage. The plans also include an addition to the rear of the home that does not extend beyond the front facade of the home. The front facade is on the bottom, and you will see that they are adding a flat entry portico with columns projecting approximately 4.5 feet from the front building wall over the existing stoop. A gambrel roofed dormer centrally located on the second floor elevation is proposed above the portico. The existing home, as you can see, is on the left, where it just has a small overhang it projects about 2 feet out from the building wall. Consultant Vogel observed that the proposed new front entry will not significantly alter the scale or detract from the historic character of the facade. The columned portico design will help accentuate the front door, which will remain centered. These kinds of partial width front entry porches are a common feature of colonial revival styles. The addition of the gambrel roof dormer above the front entry is consistent with the colonial revival aesthetic. The dormer extends outward from the center of the existing shed roof dormer that spans the full width of the facade. And this kind of cross gambrel dormer without sidewalls is relatively rare, but recognizable as Dutch colonial decorative detail. Furthermore, the new dormer feature will not alter the balanced symmetry of the facade, and the original pattern of fenestration will remain intact. Replacement of the existing brick trim and stucco will not substantially alter the character of the facade. The addition of dentil moldings along the eaves of the main roof and second-story overhang is also common colonial revival design detailing. Mr. Vogel has stated that the replacement windows are appropriate for a historic home rehabilitation in the Country Club District. He added that there is no need to duplicate the original window sash and glazing pattern. The new work has been designed so that the remodeled house will be compatible in size, scale, color, texture with the other colonial revival styles in the district. And again, you see the existing is in yellow. This is the south face of the existing home, and then they have the addition to the east. And this is the and here is this, for scale purposes, this is the existing home without the addition. Again, this is the north elevation, and you can see the projection of the front entry canopy. And here is the gambreled roof sticking out here just a little bit beyond the shed roof. And then again, we've got the rear elevation. Mr. Vogel went on to comment about the detached garage, which is proposed to be 528 square feet in area, and it will accommodate 2 cars, and it's going to measure 24 feet by 22 feet. The design of the structure is proposed to complement the colonial revival Dutch colonial style of the home with traditional gambrel roof design, stucco walls, and heavy cedar shake shingles with a traditional bell-curved bottom at the eave. Trim board at the eave height is provided on all elevations. And on this west elevation, attention to detail is provided with 2 custom entry doors. The garage plans demonstrate a roof height of 18 feet at its highest peak, which is the same as the existing. And you can see here the height at 18 feet. It's the same as the existing garage on the property, and it's all and is consistent with dimensions of new garages which have been approved through the Certificate of Appropriateness process. This is the south elevation with the service door. Here you have the rear elevation, and then there is the north elevation. Here's a survey of the property. It's a little busy, but here you can see this is the proposed garage in this location. It has been moved further east on the property in order to accommodate the new addition. It still is maintaining a 14.5-foot setback from that east property line. Mr. Vogel has observed that the existing detached garage that is proposed to be demolished was constructed in 1944 and is therefore not considered a heritage preservation resource. Based on the plans presented, the design for the new garage appears to be compatible with the historic house in scale, size, and building materials and will not detract from the neighborhood's historic character. The addition to the rear of the home shows, for the board's information, new living space that has been designed to provide compatible use of the home while at the same time maintaining the home's overall historic character. Preservation consultant Vogel observed that both the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the district's plan of treatment allow for additions to homes in the district, provided the new construction is architecturally compatible with the historic house and the neighborhood environment. Although the addition is quite large, most of the addition will not be visible from the street. More importantly, no significant historic character defining feature will be destroyed or obscured by the new construction. Overall, the architectural detailing for the addition reflects the colonial revival aesthetic embodied in the original house. Furthermore, the addition represents an appropriate contemporary approach to old house rehabilitation. Mr. Vogel did suggest introducing a small-scale design detail to help visually differentiate the new work from the historic core of the house. A strip of molding or a break in the roof line demarcating the break between old and new would probably work fine. Mr. Vogel concluded that since the proposed facade alterations are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic buildings, and the new detached garage has been designed to be compatible with the historic house in scale, size, and building materials, and will not detract from the neighborhood's historic character, approval of the Certificate of Appropriateness is recommended. Staff agrees with Mr. Vogel's recommendation for approval of the proposed improvements to the property, finding that the plans provided with the subject request clearly illustrate the scale and scope of the proposed projects. The proposed detached garage will complement the architectural style of the home and not be detrimental to the adjacent historic structures. The proposed new frontage porch will not significantly alter the scale or detract from the historic character of the facade. The changes to the frontage canopy and gambrel roof dormer on the front facade complement the Dutch colonial features of the home. The new work has been designed so that the remodeled house will be compatible in size, scale, color, and texture with other colonial revival style homes in the district. The proposed facade alterations are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic buildings that lack individual architectural distinction. And the information provided supporting the subject certificate of appropriateness meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the Country Club District's plan of treatment. Conditions for approval would include being subject to the plans presented and placement of a year-built plaque on the exterior of the new detached garage. And with that, I will entertain any questions you may have.
Are there any questions by the board for staff? All right, then the next step is applicant comments. Do we have any comments from any applicants? Would you like to comment on it at all?
I'm Scott Wagner with WB Builders, and we put the project together to match the detail of the neighborhood, and the client, they're very excited to move into the neighborhood. It's a new house that they purchased to remodel for them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any public comments from anybody else regarding this property? Okay, then we'll move on. We'll close the public comment portion and open up board discussion. Any comments from the board?
I think it's a very nice design. I thought it was brilliant putting the gambrel on the front like that, and mimicking the side gambrels, but I'm opposed to the changes on the front street-facing facade because it just, in my opinion, it destroys the historic features of the house. And the gambrel is a significant change to the street-facing facade and roofline by adding the gambrel-style dormer as entry canopy and changing the size and shape of the existing first-floor windows. I would urge the Heritage Preservation Board to deny the COA as inconsistent with the Country Club District Plan of Treatment and the Secretary of the Interior standards. 4625 Arden is a contributing heritage resource and contributes significantly to the integrity of the Country Club District. It has not been substantially altered from its original appearance. As we know, heritage preservation resources may lack individual distinction, but the historic Country Club District is considered as a whole and is a sum of its parts. 4625 Arden is considered a heritage preservation resource because it is a Thorpe Country Club house. It's one of the oldest houses in the neighborhood, 1925, and its historical documentation is good, i.e., the street-facing facade has not been previously altered. The primary objective of the Country Club Heritage Landmark District is preservation of the existing historic house facades and streetscapes. In the present case, altering the street-facing facade of 4625 Arden by changing the roofline and enlarging the first-floor windows substantially alters the architectural character of the house, removes it from the Heritage Preservation Resource List, and puts it at risk in the future. In other words, changes allowed today will not protect it tomorrow. So I'm opposed to the lovely changes.
Does anybody else wish to comment?
So in looking at the street-facing elevation modifications that we're reviewing, as well as the detached garage, I note that the style of the design that's being proposed is very compatible with the style of the home originally. It is an upgrade from the original home, but in several respects is a finer version of that in terms of the proportions of the openings. The windows are taller but narrower, and overall is a composition of this style of house I think is compatible with the style. I would note, just from my experience with respect to Consultant Vogel's reference to this kind of cross-gambrel dormer without sidewalls being relatively rare, that actually, if you look at standard builder homes from the 1900 to 1920 era, that a cross-gambrel as part of the front elevation was relatively common within the Minneapolis building history. So I think that it is very complementary to the style of the original house.
Would any other board members like to comment?
I agree with Member Sussman. I do believe that the enhancements are within reason. I think that the overall plan, including the Dutch colonial gamble on the addition, the garage, I think it all is very complete, and I think it looks very appropriate.
Any further comments? I would just like to add that I also agree that the changes are complementary to the home. One thing that I consider is whether or not these changes could be revised back to the original, and they would simply be, I think they could, and that's part of the Secretary of the Interior standards, and I think that in this case that does apply. You could simply take that gambrel off the front, and it would be relatively easy to go back to the original in those cases. I also do believe that the new window proportions are more in line with a traditional colonial style as well. So with that, do we have any, would somebody like to propose a vote for this?
I would like to make one more comment if I could.
Sure.
I would just like to remind the board that it's not our job to decide what's compatible. It's our job the primary objective of the Country Club Heritage Landmark District is preservation of the existing historic house facades and streetscapes. So for us to sit and second guess what is appropriate and compatible and what isn't is really not our job.
Does anybody would like to respond at all? I would like to respond in that my understanding of the plan of treatment for these homes is that there are certain things that are allowed in modernizing the houses that are not necessarily preservation in its most strict sense. Over the past boards have allowed changes to the front facades. I think that the understanding that I've gotten based on the history of the board has been that some of these changes are okay and don't necessarily harm the intent of the program, even though it's not as strict as some aspects of the Secretary of the Interior standards are. It's not a true, I think if you look at the various aspects of restoration, renovation, rehab, and those things in the interior standards. They're basically, my understanding of the plan of treatment is that the city didn't want that strict of a standards for these houses, and they wanted people to be able to update them somewhat. So that's my comment on that.
I have nothing further.
Does staff have any comments regarding that at all?
The plan of treatment was established to provide guidance in making changes in the district, not to prevent changes.
Well, I guess I have a comment to that. I thought my understanding was that the change would be allowed to the rear of the house and the additions and the garage and so on, but I
Changes
think
to front facade have been allowed as well, as long as they are vetted through the Heritage Preservation Board and through the plan of treatment.
Robert, would you like to comment as a historian on this at all?
Well, this has been an issue since the very beginning. And I suppose the easiest answer to give to any of the questions about, well, when does a change become a hazard to the integrity of the district? And it's the overall concept is rehabilitation, which allows for changes and all kinds of alterations. Everything changes. There is no way to freeze dry the architecture of the country club district. And so the board has always, well, I guess the simple way to put it is the board has always followed the directive of the city council that enacted the ordinance, which was to give owners as much latitude as possible in, I guess you'd call it adjusting the character of their houses, so long as the integrity of the district as a whole is preserved. Changes even to the street facades have been permitted. There's a line out there, and it moves from board to board as to how far you want to go. But I think, I can't remember who made the comment, but the reversibility of these changes is also something that needs to be always considered. And it is, for the district, an unusual composition. You don't find that shed-roofed facade spanning dormer I don't think in any other houses in the district. But the introduction of this new dormer helps accentuate the entry below it, which is a major feature of colonial revival, and I think it's a legitimate design decision to make in the 21st century for these kinds of houses. This particular kind of colonial revival also presents some rather obvious challenges for people wanting to. It's not the simplest thing to work with, and I think they've done a good job on this one.
I guess I would just say that if Samuel Thorpe wanted a gambrel canopy on the front, he would have put one there.
Well, it wasn't his decision to put it there. It was the owner and their contractor who proposed what we see. And while we know some things about some of the houses, we don't know anything about how the decision was made for this particular house.
Are we ready for a vote then?
I move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 4625 Arden Avenue.
Do we have a second? Or actually, should we just vote on that then? Those who say aye? Oh, second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Those who say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. I believe it will pass then. We'll move on to the next one, which is 4511 Browndale Avenue.
There you go. Thank you. The subject property is located on the east side of the 4500 block of Browndale Avenue. The existing home, constructed in 1924, has an attached two-car garage. A certificate of appropriateness application for a renovation project to the home was considered at the September 9th Heritage Preservation Board meeting. Those plans included removing the existing roof and adding a third story, which, as defined in the district's plan of treatment, would be considered a demolition of the original home, since more than 50% of the roof was to have been removed. Because the home was constructed during the district's period of significance from 1924 to 1944, demolition cannot be a consideration. Thus, the application for the certificate of appropriateness was denied. The application under consideration tonight includes new plans for changes to the street-facing facade and an addition to the rear of the home. You have on the top the existing front elevation, and on the right you have the proposed front elevation. The street-facing facade changes include a reduction in the size of the front entry overhang from a 5-foot by 13-foot to a 2.5 by 11-foot. And here is the front entry overhang that's being reduced in size. Replacing the windows in the same location, but increasing the window size in some instances, and removing the shingled eyebrow extension over the first floor windows and replacing it with trim band. That's referencing this shingled trim board, and here is the trim band that is replacing it. Plans for an addition to the rear of the home have been provided for the board's information. And the new spaces include a rebuilt attached garage on the south elevation utilizing the same driveway, and a family room on the first floor with expanded bedroom spaces on the second floor, changes which provide a compatible use of the home while at the same time retain the overall historic integrity. And you can see this is the existing, on the top you have the existing north side elevation, and this is the proposed. Here you have actually the existing home ends, this is where the existing home probably ends about here. And this would be all addition area. This is the existing south elevation, and you see here they've got, the existing house has an attached two-car garage with, it's got a flat roof, and there's a screen porch, I think, on the back here. And here you have the addition of the, actually replacing the garage with 3 stalls and with the addition above. And here you have the rear of the facade. Here's the existing, again, with the flat-roofed garage. And here you have, again, it's going to have a porch over it. A portion of it is flat-roofed. And then with the family room. Preservation consultant Robert Vogel evaluated the project and commented that when built in 1924, the subject home lacked architectural significance but shared a number of design characteristics common to the majority of homes built in the country club during the district's period of historical significance. These characteristics include its compound rectangular ground plan, 2-story wall height, symmetrical facade, hip roof, and stucco wall cladding. As with the great majority of the houses in the district, its original decorative detailing was little more than a skin-deep embellishment of a basic suburban house form. Although it exhibits some aspects of the craftsman and prairie styles, these are minor design elements and should not be viewed as significant character-defining features. As it appears today, the house does not embody the distinctive design elements that would make it individually significant as an authentic specimen of craftsman or prairie-style architecture, neither of which is a period revival style. Mr. Vogel observed that while the applicant proposes to alter the exterior appearance of the house by replacing the existing windows and entry on the front elevation, the original roof shape and stucco wall cladding will be retained. And based on the plans presented, the applicant has made a reasonable effort to preserve the historic character and details of the original building facade. Thus, the proposed changes will not compromise the historic integrity of the home in the Country Club District. Mr. Vogel concluded that the proposed plans provide a more contemporary design for the principal facade that is sensitive to the period revival architectural character of a vast majority of the historic homes in the district. Both the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the Country Club District Plan of Treatment allow for contemporary design in additions, exterior remodeling, and new construction, provided that the new work is compatible with the size, scale, color, material, and character of the historic resources. In this case, the distinguishing historical qualities of the home will not be destroyed, and the property will be visually compatible with the size, scale, color, and materials of other historic homes in the district. Thus, Consultant Vogel recommends approval of the Certificate of Appropriateness subject to the plans presented. Staff agrees with Consultant Vogel's comments and recommendation. The proposed plans were well thought out, reflecting meetings with the city staff and preservation consultant, research into the city's records on Country Club District homes, as well as consideration of the comments expressed at the September Heritage Preservation Board meeting. The plans ensure that the character and historic integrity of the original home will not be compromised. The height, scale, and mass of the original home remain untouched. Furthermore, the proposed plans entail changes to the front facade of the home that are not unlike changes which have been approved for other homes in the district through the Certificate of Appropriateness process. Findings supporting the recommendation for approval include the proposed plans meet the plan of treatment guidelines for new construction by being compatible in material, size, scale, and texture with other homes in the district. The proposed changes are consistent with the character of the historic integrity of the subject home as well as the adjacent historic structures. The plans provided with the subject request clearly illustrate the scale and scope of the proposed projects, and the information provided supporting the subject certificate of appropriateness meets the requirements of the Country Club District Plan of Treatment and the zoning ordinance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board for staff? No questions. Applicant comment? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this one?
Why don't you come to the podium and give your name and address?
Hi, Dan Dulles, 4609 Bruce Avenue in Country Club District. I just had a couple comments. Obviously I was at the last meeting and feel it's important that we maintain the street facade of these homes. I think that interpretation of the Secretary of Interior's recommendations I have a different interpretation of what I've read, but I think that the change in the windows and the size of windows and the adding doors in the front and taking down the slope of the portico does change the look of this home to me from the streetscape. And the streetscape is what, when we did the plan of treatment, was really what was important. And that's what we looked at as being the thing that we should maintain as best as possible. I think that this is a good-looking house, but doesn't allow it to maintain its differentiation from the other homes within the district. We said before, was a prairie-style house, or at least looked prairie-style, and that was made it interesting and unique. And I think with all the windows and what they've done, it takes away from that. And I think that that's, to me, takes away the character of this house. The last question I have to Mr. Vogel is, when we change these things, especially in such a dramatic fashion as this, or even the one before it, these are historical resources. Are they now not historical resources, and are they not any longer subject to some of the other restrictions as far as demolition in the future go? Because I think that that's a major concern for us. If you change the house to a degree that it's no longer contributing, then have we really done our job, and are we really being the board that we're supposed to be? Thank you.
This property remains a contributing property within the district. The district is one resource with 550 components. That's something to bear in mind always. The dilemma that any reviewer is faced with this particular project and many of the others that come before you is that, change is inevitable, actually, but how to mitigate any adverse effects of change. If you expect the district to remain the way it appears today forever, you're going to be disappointed. And I would also offer that it looks very little like it did in 1944, let alone 1924. And so there's a series of subjective value-based judgments that you need to make in doing your job, which is to issue or not issue a certificate of appropriateness here. And I believe that since the fundamentals of this house, as it is proposed to be modified, would literally meet all of the original design requirements that Thorpe and his team put in place in 1924. He obviously was not a doctrinaire or architectural design guru. He liked lots of different kinds of houses, apparently, assuming that everything built before 1934 he personally approved. And I don't believe that it would be reasonable to assume a stance that we were not going to allow change. So we're faced with making a judgment, a highly subjective judgment, on compatibility and sustainability might also be another way to look at this. So if you think we need to dig our heels in and fend off visual change within the district, the existing ordinance and the plan of treatment are not good tools for doing that, and that was never the intent of the ordinance or the plan of treatment that was adopted by the City Council. It's not an architectural beauty contest every time you have a certificate of appropriateness. I'm not sure this is terribly helpful for you. I give you the same speech every time you have a permit, it seems, but...
Are there any other comments from the public? If not, then I'll close the public comment and open it up for board discussion.
I would like to make a few comments. Well, I think that the Country Club District is quite a bit like it was in 1944 and 1924. And that's exactly what we're trying to preserve. I mean, yes, the trees are bigger, maybe the color of the windows are different, but for the most part, the street-facing facade is the same as it was when the neighborhood was put together. And that's exactly what we're trying to preserve, and I think that is what the plan of treatment allows us and authorizes us to do. In fact, on the city's website, the Country Club District is discussed, and it says the data at hand show that historic facades in the district are, by and large, intact. And that is what we as a board are trying to preserve, the street-facing facade. The loss of historic integrity, the city website goes on to say, caused by inappropriate remodeling and additions has been proportionately small. Less than 5% of the homes, more than 50 years old, have been torn down or recreated to the point where they no longer resemble the original home. So with regard to 4511 Browndale, I think removal of the front porch as it exists is a demolition, and I don't think that the petitioners meet their burden of proving that the house they need a demolition permit for that, and I don't think they meet the standard with regard to the remodel that they're proposing. Merriam-Webster defines a porch as an entrance to a building that has a separate roof. That's exactly what we're talking about here by taking the original porch off and putting a new porch on. It's substantially different. I also object to the removing the front picture windows and the shingled eyebrow extension over the front first floor windows and replacing it with a trim band. I think those architectural features are precisely what make this house the historic house that it is, the historic resource that it is. And changing that out changes the house substantially. Looking even at these drafts, it doesn't look like the old prairie craftsman style house that it once was. And then to alter the street-facing facade from its original appearance It will lose its historic integrity. It's not contributing to the country club district the way that it should be and has in the past. It becomes non-contributing and puts it at risk for future changes and even possibly a tear down. We don't know. I mean, someone maybe someday will look at this house and say, there were substantial changes made. It's not a contributing resource. Let's tear it down. I think those kinds of changes today put it at risk tomorrow. So I'm opposed to the certificate of appropriateness. I think that changes can be made to these houses without these kinds of alterations. I think the transom windows are nice, but not appropriate for this house.
Are there any other comments? Peter?
So I'm looking at the changes made since the previous applicant scheme that we reviewed in September, and note several things that to me appear a favorable change in response. One is that the roof line is not altered. Another is that the character is far less substantially changed. We're not trying to mimic a historic revival style which later appeared and became prevalent in the district. This house, as proposed now, retains some aspects of the present design. As a matter of fact, although ever considering it to be a prairie school design home is a stretch, the proposed scheme with the horizontal trim board extending the full width of the house actually enhances the horizontal treatment that presently exists. So overall, I think it's very much a step in the right direction in terms of updating the home, but not trying to create something so much different than what it is presently.
Anyone else would like to comment?
I think I appreciate the applicants coming back with a revision like this. This, I think, is more in the direction of where they should go. You can still see the essence of the original house, where the last one adding the roof, and that was so drastic that I think this is much better. And I would move to approve.
Do we have a motion then to approve? All right, we do, I guess. Do we have a second, I guess? Or would we rather have more discussion? Anybody else?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
That one is passed as well.
Certificate of appropriateness to both parties. And we do recommend that you wait the 10-day appeal period prior to construction.
The next item on the agenda is the City Council work session from September 16th and board member reflections on that meeting. I'll just say that meeting was our annual meeting with the City Council to go over the items that we'd worked on in the past year and the proposal for the work plan for the next year and in the future. So do we have any other comments about our meeting from last month?
I thought it went very well. I appreciated everybody being there. I thought former Chair Birdman led a very good discussion and conversation, and I believe the council was happy with where we've gone so far.
Any other comments on it? I thought it was a good meeting too, and it leads into the next thing, which was the Work Plan 2015 Council work session, which was just in which I attended, and that was a work plan basically where we presented the 2015 work plan to the City Council along with the other boards. And so I got to hear a little bit about what the other boards are doing as well. And one of the things that the City Council again talked about and were positive towards were the 3 houses, well, the 2 houses and the bridge that are going to be landmarks this coming year. So the next item on the agenda is the Wooddale Bridge update. Robert, would you like to present this?
You received in your packet, I believe, actually a consultant report prepared for the Minnesota Department of Transportation on the Wooddale Bridge. A number of years ago, actually, the first part of the project was actually undertaken in the 1980s and then completed in the 1990s. Mndot, since it received so much federal funding to build roads and bridges, just about everything they do is subject to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. So they are compelled to assess the effects of their projects on things that may be historic preservation resources. And so they wanted to look at all of their bridges. And what I always thought was the most amusing part of the whole thing was that they found out they had more bridges than they thought, let alone far more historic bridges than they thought. And so since, I think it was 1992 or 1993, when Mndot actually committed itself to having a management plan for all of its historic bridges, they've been going literally bridge by bridge, but usually as part of a bridge replacement project. In other words, it would be time to replace whatever bridge was there, and then they would look in their files and they would see that their consultant had said it was a historic bridge, and then they would react. Over the course of the 1990s, they became extremely proactive and actually started to develop plans for the individual bridges, whether or not they were listed in the National Register or not. And the Wooddale Bridge, which is what we call it, is one of these that was identified as a potential historic property, and that even though it's a city-owned property, Mndot actually ends up paying for most of what happens to it. So what they've been doing most recently is they've taken a page from your playbook. This is what amounts to the Mndot version of a plan of treatment for a property. And it provides a very good description of it physically. And it lays out a kind of right down the middle of the road what you would do if you had to repair or modernize it. It assumes that the bridge will be preserved in place. And we've discussed this before, but there's a parallel project also going on to place this particular bridge on the National Register of Historic Places. And once that is completed, we will re-register it as an Edina Heritage Landmark, but we'll let Mndot complete we'll let them pay for some of the stuff that we'll have to use is what we're really doing. So this is, we thought we'd let you see the whole document. I mean, it's, like most, frankly, most engineering documents, or most documents produced by engineers, maybe I should say. A lot of it's just boilerplate, and every bridge is treated the same way. But I think there are parts of it that are fairly illuminating. And so we just wanted you to see this. There's nothing for you to act on. We commented on it, Joyce and I did, and we found it adequate. It would have been nice if they had asked us for some of that information, but there's a tendency, those of you who work with state agencies know what I'm talking about here, to kind of reinvent every wheel whenever there's an opportunity to do so. But they missed nothing important. It would have been very helpful to have something like this when the city rehabilitated the Browndale Bridge, which was We were literally working in the dark and making it up as we went along on how that, and it turned out perfect, but this would have been the kind of thing that would have been nice to start with. You notice that if you read it carefully, that the part that presents a design review challenge is what to do about the parapet, the railings, the stonework that forms the edges of the historic property as it spans the creek. Aside from all the probably hundreds of vehicular assaults, what will probably end up happening is some kind of reconstruction and probably using alternative materials. There are some obvious public safety issues that need to be resolved. But in my professional opinion, this is a project when the city does carry out rehabilitation of the bridge that is well within our capabilities and would meet any relevant preservation standard. So this is all good news. Just a lot of paper if you printed it out.
Do we have any board discussion regarding this, or would you like anybody to talk about it?
I do have a couple questions. Joyce, when Edina goes to do this as a designated property, would we be able to enhance a little of the history of this that we know of? I know from past conversations with our board of, the old bridge that was, up the creek, and would we be able to, include more of the local history with our designation?
Yes, by federal law, you are the controller. You have the ability to stop the National Register nomination cold if you don't like it. There are only two people in the whole world who can do that, and one is the chair of the Heritage Preservation Board, and the other is the mayor. So not only will you get a chance to see the draft of the National Register nomination, I assume that's what you're talking about. That'll have 25 pages of bridge history.
I'm sure.
And that's being prepared by another consultant.
106?
Yeah, the 106 group in St. Paul, which does thousands of bridge National Register nominations, and they do a very good job. But when that goes to the SNRC, the State National Register Review Committee, we will get the copy and we will forward it to you. And of course, the board can participate actively in the review process, but they will wait until you comment before it. National Register's nominations are processed through Mndot's Cultural Resources Unit, the CRU, and then they go to the State National Register Review Committee, and from there they go to the National Park Service. But your role is sort of between the CRU and before the SNRC.
Thank you. And I do have a question for Member Sussman. Is this bridge the same material that St. Stephen's is built from?
No.
Well, I think it's a local limestone.
Yes, it's Platteville limestone, the prettiest rock, with the worst to build anything with.
Well, so I have a question as far as noting what is a very detailed description in this report that we've been sent, speaking to the deterioration of the stone and its need for replacement. Who will be responsible for review of I'll call it a plan of treatment in effect, but the scope of work and its compatibility with the present design?
This is a bridge that's owned by the city of Edina. Well, I would imagine, it isn't actually, there is no in-place plan to do anything, but it would be a state aid project, so it would involve, for example, for the Browndale Bridge, the city did the design work rather than the county or the state. They haven't decided that yet. But yes, so we would have a role either way. Mndot CRU is very accommodating toward municipal preservation programs. One of the problems with Platteville limestone is that it's not quarried anymore. And so what I think we'll probably see is a partial reconstruction, maybe using concrete, which can be, Mndot's gotten really good at dyeing concrete to match this stuff, because everything built up until the 1950s was constructed with it. It's just not active, commercially quarried anymore. So I can show you some things that we've done with them where we've made a compliant, safety standard compliant bridge railing out of the new material that is a perfect match to the old. You'll like it.
I will just say that at the AA, at the convention for the American Association of Local and State Histories, which was just last month, I went to a seminar that was put on by Mndot for their historic bridges, and they showed a few examples of some of the work that they had done on previous bridges, including the Duluth Bridge, lift bridge, and then some other structures. There were similar stone structures that they needed to incorporate code-compliant railings and things like that, and they did a really good job of hiding that type of stuff behind the stone. So hopefully they'll take a good approach for this bridge and keep a lot of its character. Any additional comments? I think we're just... Nope, it's just a report. Next piece on the agenda is the election of officers to fill the vice chair vacancy. We've had a couple members who have left the board, and we have one of them was our former chair, and so now we have a vice chair vacancy. Do we have any comments about this? I would just like to say there are two other individuals on the board who are absent today.
Right, and if you want to postpone the vote for the next meeting, that would be fine too.
That's kind of the direction I was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any who oppose that? Do we need to make a vote on that then?
Mm-hmm.
Vote to postpone till next week. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we will wait until next week for that.
Next month?
Next month, yes. We have meetings every week.
Sometimes it comes.
Okay, so next is correspondence and petitions.
Great. Well, you had several in your packet. First was just a notice to you that there is plans in the work for a country club architectural walking tour, and the people who are planning this tour have asked you to pencil in Saturday, May 9th from 10 to 11:30 on your calendars this is 2015, but if you can just put those on your calendars, and that's all the information we have right now, but stay tuned and more information will be available. And then there was also a flyer about the Vision Edina. This is an ongoing broad-based community visioning process that the city has undertaken. And member Joyce Mellum was kind enough to represent the Heritage Preservation Board on a task force that really set up the structure for this visioning. And now what they're doing is they're taking it out to the community. And they wanted you to know about 3 upcoming events that you are invited to attend. One is Wednesday, November 5th, and that's at the Senior Center from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. There's another session on Thursday, November 6th at the Southdale Public Library from 1:30 p.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. And the third is on Wednesday, November 19th at the Edina Senior Center from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And I've participated in this visioning as an employee, but also as a resident, and I found it really fascinating. So I encourage you to attend one of those sessions if you have the ability to. And the third piece of information I found in the Edina Historical Society newsletter, and they are sponsoring a community ed class on Southdale, a building that changed America. And this class is being put on by the Community Education, and it's going to be at 10:30 to noon on Tuesday, October 21st. That's next Tuesday, and the cost is $10. So if anybody's interested in just diving into the history of Southdale and finding out more about it, Marty Rood, who was the first public relations director, I think he's very instrumental in planning this class, and I think it should be a fun time. So I encourage anybody interested to attend that.
Could I add a comment? I actually worked with Marty and Jamie Height, another Edina Historical Society volunteer, going through a lot of the archives we received from Simon that donated all the Southdale archives to the Edina Historical Society. And Marty is, I would say, at least late 80s, and he has the most incredibly sharp mind. He could go through photographs and identify the event, the year, who it was, trivia about like their top hula dancer, where they received their degree, what school. It's just absolutely fascinating what he can remember. So he's really a neat guy and had many great stories, and I know he'll be sharing them next Tuesday, so hope you can make it.
Do we have any other comments about it, or are we ready for chair and board member comments?
Joyce, I had a follow-up question with regard to the notice of the Country Club Architectural Walking Tour, which I think was mentioned probably at last month's meeting. And first of all, I'd like to commend the organizers for undertaking something like this, and I'm hoping that some combination of staff and or HPB member participation is anticipated by the community group, and whether our two members who are country club residents want to take on something like that, that's one possibility, but I think that there's an opportunity to do a collaborative effort here in making this the best program possible.
Or any other chair or board member comments?
I have one. Joyce, at the last Grange meeting at the Grange Hall, I noticed there are two 1-inch holes in the siding, one in the back of the building and one on the north side. Who would I report those to? Because I fear white might nest in there over the winter.
Good question. You can let me know. And then I will let Public Works.
Public Works?
Yeah,
or?
they oversee the building. But just
Okay.
why don't you send me an email?
I'll send you an email.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
did you take a picture with your phone?
I don't have a phone.
That's okay. Just give me good.
I'll give you the.
Tell
I'll
me
give
which
you
elevation and where.
the location, the
yes,
rough location.
Exactly. That'd
Thank
be
you.
great.
All right, so one more from Peter.
So I'd just like to draw the board's attention to an article, a feature that appeared in the October 5th Star Tribune home section regarding a recently completed home at 4243 Crocker in Morningside. And what caught my attention was, after our discussion on the home in Indian Hills designed by Elizabeth Close, is that the owners of this new home in Morningside, Jane King Hessian and Bill Alexie, are actually engaged in a documentary or a book on Elizabeth Close's career and her work. And in following up with Planner Repia, I was told that they have already become involved in the nomination of that historic or that potential designation of the property of the home designed by Elizabeth Close. So I'm hoping that we can hear more from this couple, maybe invite them to one of our meetings and have them tell us more about the heritage of Elizabeth Close's work as represented in this Edina home and her other work.
Great.
Any other comments? Staff comments.
I do have one comment, and it has to do with your meeting next month. You might notice that it's on a Monday instead of a Tuesday, so please mark your calendars. Tuesday happens to be Veterans Day. City Hall is closed, and we're not having any meetings on Tuesday, so we moved the meeting to Monday.
You better send us an email on that.
I highlighted it in yellow, but I sure will.
Joyce, I'm sorry, I do have one other question for you. I know at the joint session with the City Council, we had talked about the process for designating homes being eligible, and there was a conversation about we were going to notify owners that they're in a what we find to be a home of eligible substance. Do we have any direction or any?
We're in the process of crafting a letter, and basically we're not asking for their permission to designate the home. We're just telling them your home is designated a landmark, because, and I'll give them the history.
Super.
And then encourage them, if you're interested in pursuing designation, we would be more than happy to work with
Excellent. Well, if you need help with that letter, I'd be happy to assist.
Thank you.
All right, once again, the next meeting is November 10th, 2014. It is a Monday, and we have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.